Hey kids, thanks for listening to my video book talk. Today we're going to be talking about musicians. Do any of y'all play an instrument, or do you sing or rap, or maybe you just listen to music? I know I love music, and the musicians these books are about made some of the best. Not only that, they lived cool and interesting lives, and I think you're going to want to read their stories. The first book I'm going to talk about is When the Beat Was Born, DJ Kool Herc and the Creation of Hip Hop, and that's by Laban Carrick Hill, illustrated by Theodore Taylor III. Before he was called DJ Kool Herc, he was just Clive, and he was a regular kid in Kingston, Jamaica, listening to his gospel and swing records. He had a neighbor who loved music too, a DJ, and Clive thought it was so cool that his neighbor threw these huge dance parties. Later, when he moved to New York, he would throw his own parties. He learned how to get huge sound out of his dad's speakers, big like an entire block in the Bronx. At his own dance parties, he drew crowds that loved to dance hard. They especially liked it when DJ Kool Herc made breaks. It's when he used two turntables to take a 10-second part of a song and loop it over and over and over. Basically, those breaks were some of the first hip-hop beats. And DJ Kool Herc remembered how in Jamaica, some of the DJs would call out the names of their friends or do chants over the beats. Everyone loved it, and that kind of emceeing turned into what we now know as rapping. Let me read you a little bit. Over the next year, Herc took his parties to the streets and parks of the Bronx. He plugged his sound system into the lampposts. They pulled so much power that the streetlights dimmed, the perfect lighting for a street party. Kool Herc's music made everyone happy. Even street gangs wanted to dance, not fight. Some of the gangs actually became some of the first breakdancing crews. So to find out more about DJ Kool Herc and the origins of hip-hop music, check out When the Beat Was Born by Laban Carrick Hill and Theodore Taylor III. Our next book is called Celia Cruz, Queen of Salsa, and it's by Veronica Chambers and illustrated by Julie Marin. Celia grew up in Havana, Cuba, part of a huge family. Sometimes there would be 14 kids all sharing space together in one tiny house. But even among all her siblings and cousins, Celia stood out because of her voice, which some described as like an angel and others as like a hummingbird. Celia Cruz started singing in local shows when she was only in high school. Celia's dad wanted her to stay in school and be a teacher, but she kept on working hard, struggling to follow her dream, and she ended up the frontwoman of one of the biggest bands in all of Cuba. Her fame grew in her home country, and eventually she made her way to the U.S., to Hollywood, though the government in Cuba said that because she left her country, she could never come back. Do you think Celia made it in Hollywood? Did she miss her home? What do you guys think happened to the Queen of Salsa? To find out and to see more of these beautiful, beautiful illustrations, read Celia Cruz, Queen of Salsa by Veronica Chambers and illustrated by Julie Marin. Oh, is this thing on? I'm really sorry you guys had to see that. I was just pretending to rock out to a song I really like, Purple Haze by Jimi Hendrix. And Jimi Hendrix is the subject of the next book I'm going to talk about, Jimmy Sounds Like a Rainbow by Gary Golio and illustrated by Javaka Steptoe. Jimi Hendrix was incredibly creative, even as a young child, whether making rain noises on a one-string ukulele or drawing and painting. Let me read you a little bit. At home, Jimmy drew and painted for hours. He filled pages with sleek, finned spaceships, knights on horseback, and a few other things I'm going to skip. Jimmy's imagination was on fire, and a tune was always playing in his head. At night, he'd listen to his dad croon along with gospel, jazz, or blues records on the old phonograph, a song by Muddy Waters with its wailing guitar and a harmonica, set off fireworks in his mind. He wondered, could a person use music like chalks and colored pencils? Could someone paint pictures with sound? When Jimmy grew up, he certainly would. He evokes wild pictures with incredible sounds that he makes on his electric guitar, using an amplifier to make the guitar chirp and buzz and whistle. Jimmy grows up to be one of the wildest, most inventive guitarists in rock and roll history. To find out more about Jimmy's story and see the pictures up close of this book that strives to be as inventive as Jimmy's music, with bright colors and collages that use interesting textured objects, check out Jimmy Sounds Like a Rainbow, The Story of Jimi Hendrix by Gary Golio, illustrated by Javaka Steptoe. One of my favorite kind of music is old country music, and one of my favorite old country musicians is Johnny Cash. So of course I enjoyed this book. Hello, I'm Johnny Cash by G. Neri and A. G. Ford. When the book starts, Johnny Cash isn't even called that yet. He still goes by his childhood name, J.R. And here he is with his brothers and his mom, and they're fleeing their Arkansas home during the Great Depression, looking for a new life. And his only solace on the ride is his mom's guitar and her voice. Music would be a comfort and a joy throughout his life, and would really help him in situations where he experienced a lot of pain, like when his brother died, or during his lonely years in the army where he needed music to pass the time. And Johnny Cash didn't just use this music to make himself feel better. He also wanted to use music to lessen the struggles of other people. As the author of this book puts it, his songs gave a voice to the voiceless, capturing so many people's heartaches, struggles, and triumphs. It seemed like he spoke for America, just as America spoke for him. For almost 40 years, he crisscrossed this great land as his concerts took him down every major highway to cities big and small. But it was only after he'd written 1,000 songs, sung 10,000 shows, and sold over 50 million records that Johnny Cash came to believe that the Promised Land was not a place in Dyess, Arkansas, or Landsberg, Germany, or Memphis, Tennessee. It was the feeling he got in his heart every time he shared his gift. And I barely told you half of the great things in this book. So if you want to learn more, say about his wife, the famous June Carter, or about the time he met Elvis, check out Hello, I'm Johnny Cash by G. Neri and A. G. Ford. We're going to talk about one more book, and this one was one of my absolute favorites I read this year. It's called Josephine, and the words are by Patricia Ruby Powell, and the pictures by Christian Robinson. And it's about Josephine Baker, who is not only a singer, but a dancer, and even a spy. Josephine grew up poor, out of wedlock, and as a person of color in a very bad time in the history of her home, St. Louis, and the country. There were race riots during her childhood, white against black, and rioters would burn down the homes of some of her neighbors, forcing them to flee. Amazingly, Josephine was able to use the fear of the racist violence around her and turn it into something positive. Let's read a little bit. Fear grasped hold of her heart and squeezed tight the core of a volcano. Anger heated and boiled into steam, pressing hot in a place deep in her soul. Later, she'd let the steam out in little poofs. Poof, a funny face. That used to be fear. Poof, she'd mock a gesture that used to be anger. She'd turn it into a dance. Ah, very witty. She sang cabaret music and jazz and pop. Josephine wore elaborate costumes and danced all across the country. Even though she was doing well in America, Josephine was tired of playing the segregated clubs, places that wouldn't have served her if she had been in the audience. So Josephine Baker went to France, which was less segregated, and became an even bigger superstar. I wasn't kidding about Josephine being a spy. During World War II, she worked with the French resistance and spied on the Nazis. I know you want to hear more, and that's exactly the reason you should pick up the book for yourself. It's Josephine by Patricia Ruby Powell and Christian Robinson. Thank you so much for being a great audience. If you want to get any of these books I've been talking about or any other musician biographies, please check out your local library.